after having so much sadhu sangha the past 2 weeks, I mean, we've had a whole 10 days immersed in sadhu sangha. And then maybe we had like 4 days where it was kind of the normal ashram program here again, and then we were back in it again. So it's actually a little difficult to kind of go back to normal because you're just, everything's on such a high level, and then all of a sudden it's just like back to reality, back to where I'm actually at, because at the end of the day, you have to make your endeavors in bhakti on your own. It's all mercy, actually. You're getting all mercy from the Guru Parampara. You're getting all mercy. But you have to make the endeavors, It's you making the endeavor. You're not controlling the result. You're not even able to very much do anything at all. But you get to make the choice whether I want to make the endeavor towards bhakti, which that's what Krishna is very attracted to, is the love. Or we make the choice of making an infinite amount of other endeavors for so many other things. Where is Piyush?
Making an infinite amount of endeavors for so many other things.
Yes. Yes, don't tell him. That must be what's happening right now. What's that? Yes. Everyone has so much work. But this is actually the problem. They're not understanding where to actually make the endeavor. So, we're here trying to make the endeavor for bhakti, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maharaj was speaking so nicely the other day how important just hearing Bhagavatam is every day. How everything is coming through the Bhagavatam. All of the works of our acharyas, everything, all the conclusions. Even the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a whole chapter on the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is like the Vaishnava canon that we refer to as Vaishnavas if we want guidance. So, Piyush, you're coming? Okay, no problem. So, very, very important. We do this every day. And actually, Maharaj, he was also telling me the importance of Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes I can forget about the importance of Bhagavad Gita. But actually, this is also very important. He gave me homework to every day at least recite one verse of Bhagavad Gita. So this is good. I mean, Shastrically, Padma Purana is telling how important Bhagavatam is. But also Bhagavad Gita is very important. So I'm going to try and do that. But here, as part of the program, as part of Srila Prabhupada's program, he put Bhagavatam every day. And so, we shall do that. So, let's do it. The last verse we did, just the English, after hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird, sent by a son of a Brahmin, he will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender into the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. Did we read this last time?
I don't know.
No, I think we ended with the peace and morality, because they were talking about slaughterhouses and gambling and so many things. So I think this is the verse we're supposed to read today.
Perfect picture.
What's that? Oh, it's him getting bit by the snake bird. Very nice. Okay, so let's do it. It's Takshaka. So, then before that, this child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. And Prabhupada was going deep into the purport, just showing that's actually what a proper devotee king would do, and what elements of society are causing so much quarrel and upstarts. And it's pretty much the 4 regulative principles. These 4 regulative principles are what is ultimately destroying Kali Yuga and creating every kind of problem in society. So you'll see that with Maharaj Parikhit, he will stand against that, and you'll hear how he got cursed soon enough. So, Takshakad Atmano Mrityum Dvija Putro Pasarjita Prapatyata Upashrutya Mukta Sangha Padam Hare Takshakat, by the snake bird. Atmanaha, of his personal self. Mrityum, death. Dvijaputra, the son of a Brahmin. Upasarjita, being sent by. Prapatsyate, having taken shelter of. Upashrutya, after hearing. Mukta Sangha, freed from all attachment. Padam, position. Hare, of the Lord. After hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird sent by a son of a Brahmin, he will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. Prabhupada is saying, purport, material attachment and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord go ill together. Material attachment means ignorance of transcendental happiness under the shelter of the Lord. This is a little bit off, right? Yeah, now I messed it up. Under the shelter of material, it means ignorance of transcendental happiness under the shelter of the Lord. That's the only reason you'd be materially attached. You just don't understand what's actually going to give you happiness. And so, devotional service to the Lord while existing in the material world is a way to practice one's transcendental relation with the Lord. And when it's matured, one gets completely free from all material attachment and becomes competent to go back home, back to Godhead. Maharaj Parikhit, being especially attached to the Lord from the beginning of his body in the womb of his mother, was continuously under the shelter of the Lord. And the so-called warning of his death within 7 days from the date of the curse by the Brahmin's son was a boon to him to enable him to prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. Since he was always protected by the Lord, he could have avoided the effect of such a curse by the grace of the Lord. But he did not take such undue advantage for nothing. Rather, he made the best use of a bad bargain. For 7 days continuously he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source, and thus he got shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord by that opportunity. So, I remember you've heard of Kadamba Kanana Swami? So he's, you probably have heard a lot of his kirtans. He's pretty, in ISKCON, one of the most prominent swamis recently. So I remember talking to him, I'm like, hey, are you sure, you're going to leave this body? And he's like, yes, I'm absolutely sure. I'm like, you don't look like you're going to leave. He's like, no, the doctors have spoken. I have this is there. And I was like, yeah, you can cure it. You have so many things. He's like, why? And it was striking to me. He was ready, and he saw it, that this is Krishna's arrangement for me. I've done this a few times already. He dealt with cancer a few times already, and now he's going, And so this is actually what Maharaj Parikhit did, and he actually saw it, that this is actually a boon from Krishna. This is how the devotee, his vision is. When things don't go how the devotee wants, instead of being like, why, Krishna, and it's tough not to do that. The devotee sees this is some boon from Krishna. He's helping me. So he saw that, and he actually sat down. He called all the sages. I don't know if he directly called them, but he sat down to fast until death. And all the sages gathered around him. And he actually inaugurated the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's probably the best thing he could have done. In the 7 days' time, he was responsible for the Srimad Bhagavatam by his questions. Also, a very important part. Sometimes I get a little frustrated with our community here, because when we have sadhus, here, a lot of times, because people are a bit neophyte, they don't understand the great value that's present before them, actually. And what ends up happening is they make so many other plans. I have so many other things I have to do. And it's like an amazing opportunity that you can have any burning question that you have in your life answered, and you can have any relief from all kinds of problems that your mind is having. But people are not taking the opportunity. So, even the past 3 days, even though it is a weekday, these programs should have been much bigger, actually. I know people are busy, many things are there, and it's a weekday. But, it's a really, really good opportunity. So anyhow, but that's exactly what Maharaj Parikhit did. He's leading by example. Okay, you have 7 days to live, what should you do? He stopped eating, he stopped drinking, and he's just asking questions to sadhus and hearing from sadhus. That's all he did the whole time. So that actually should be an example. What should we do? Before we go any further, let's glorify our Guru Varga and chant these Bhagavatam prayers. Madhav, you want to take? Yes. Take a photo of this book for your father.
Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Maneham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Savijatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Shadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambhitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalparivascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamine Te Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Srinivadi Satare Satarine.
So, before I say anything more, I want to offer my respectful obeisances to the many gurus in my life, namely my Diksha Guru, His Grace Shamik Rishi Maharaj, to the many Shiksha Gurus also in my life. We just had many Shiksha Gurus come through here and give beautiful instructions and help to us as an ashram, and that was really our great fortune. And so, and then all of our Gaudiya Guru Varga here, that's featured on the altar, and then it goes even farther, much farther back, all the way back through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and through Krishna. So all of their mercy is coming to us, and I want to offer my heart to them like flowers. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's purport, how fortunate we are to be reading through this, and let's continue. Jigyasi tatmaya tharthyo Mune vyasa sutaraso Hitvedam nripagangayam Yasyatyadha kutobayam Jigyasita, having inquired of Atma yatharthyaha, right knowledge of one's own self. Mune, from the learned philosopher. Vyasa Sutta, the son of Vyas. Aso, he. Hitva, quitting. Idam, this material attachment. Nripa, O king. Gangayam, on the bank of the Ganges. Yasyati, will go. Adha, directly. Akutabayam, the life of fearlessness. That sounds beautiful. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. Purport. Material knowledge means ignorance of the knowledge of one's own self. Philosophy means to seek after the right knowledge of one's own self, or the knowledge of self-realization. Without self-realization, philosophy is dry speculation or a waste of time and energy. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right knowledge of one's own self, and by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can get free from material attachment and enter into the kingdom of fearlessness. This material world is fearfulness. Its prisoners are always fearful, as within a prison house. In the prison house, no one can violate the jail rules and regulations, and violating the rules means another term for extension of prison life. Similarly, we in this material existence are always fearful. This fearfulness is called anxiety. Anyone ever heard of such a thing? Never. Everyone in the material life, in all species and varieties of life, is full of anxieties, either by breaking or without breaking the laws of nature. Liberation or mukti means getting relief from these constant anxieties. This is possible only when the anxiety is changed to the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. This is done in the association of a learned philosopher, like the self-realized Shukadeva Goswami, the great son of Vyasadeva. Maharaj Parikhit, after receiving warning of his death, took advantage of this opportunity by association with Shukadeva Goswami and achieved the desired result. So actually, this is at Maharaj Parikhit's birth. The Brahmanas were predicting all this. So that's why they're saying he'll inquire about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who'll be a great philosopher. So at that point, Shukadeva Goswami wasn't present. And at that point, this is just his birth. But all of this is actually being predicted. So there is a sort of imitation of this reciting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam by professional men, and their foolish audience thinks that they will get free from the clutches of material attachment and attain the life of fearlessness. Such imitative hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a caricature only, and one should not be misled by such a performance of Bhagavatam Saptaha, undertaken by ridiculous, greedy fellows to maintain an establishment of a material enjoyment. So this is also quite present. Unfortunately, this has happened. This could very much happen in a temple. This could very much be a very problematic thing. So, and I mean, it has happened. The word caricature, I would just like to know exactly what that word means. I think I know, but yes. A picture, description, or imitation of a person in which certain striking characteristics are exaggerated in order to create a comic or grotesque effect. Interesting. So to exaggerate something. So in this, Prabhupada is saying, such imitative hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a caricature only. So it's actually an exaggeration.
Pretending to be hearing it, but not really getting the essence of it.
Yes, and also if the speaker is not genuine or interested only in materially exploiting the audience.
Understanding.
Yes, and gives you the illusion of practicing the process, but you actually may not be practicing the process at all. So this is something, that's why, I mean, at least right now, we should go through the purport of Srila Prabhupada, because, let's just say we just read the verses, and I from my own understanding, it can only be a caricature, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we rely, and even Srila Prabhupada, he relied on the Gaudiya Guru Acharya's commentaries to form his own commentary. It wasn't like it was all his own unique realizations. He is relying on the past Acharya commentaries. So this actually must be done. This is why we always read the Bhagavatam with the commentaries of the great self-realized Acharyas, so that we don't actually participate in caricature Bhagavatam hearing, or there's so many Bhagavat Saptahas that are happening. Actually, an interesting thing I thought about Maharaj will actually do Bhagavat Saptahas, but because he's very well versed in all the commentaries that are Acharyas, he can actually give a proper Bhagavatam Saptaha. But you see, actually, in India, there's many Bhagavat Saptahas. On YouTube, there's many Bhagavat Saptahas. We were watching. I'm not saying I don't know, but we were at Meghna's home, and her father, we were talking, he's like, yes, this is my favorite Bhagavat Saptaha channel. He puts on the Bhagavat Saptaha channel, and I was like, oh, very nice. But I actually, I don't know what lineage, how bona fide everything is. But anyway, this is a very popular thing. In Chaitanya Leela, you actually see there's the pastime. I'm trying to think, is it in... I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If not, it's in Chaitanya Bhagavat. But where Devananda Pandit, he was a Bhagavatam reciter, and but because his conclusion wasn't pure devotional service, like many people read the Bhagavatam and they might get, oh yes, Jnana Yoga is the topmost. Many people read the Bhagavatam and say, Mayavad philosophy is the topmost. You are God, and so like that. And if they don't have the proper conclusion of the Bhagavatam, they'll never actually get the juice that's in the Bhagavatam. It's like a bee on the outside of a bottle of honey trying to lick the glass. So one time though, Srivas Thakur, he went and he heard Devananda Pandit, who was actually a pretty pure personality. He was living a very, very honorable life. He wasn't like exploiting people for material greed. He was honestly trying to give the Bhagavatam. He just had the wrong conclusion. So when Srivas Thakur, he heard the verses of the Bhagavatam from him, he started weeping and crying in ecstasy. But if your conclusion is Jnana Yoga, which is like Devananda Pandit, that's not something that's valuable, to all these Ashta Sattvic Bhavs and things. So what ended up happening was that his disciples, they were disturbed by this person weeping and crying in the midst of Bhagavatam. So they pretty much said, get out of here, and he didn't protest. So actually, it was revealed later on when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing his fast times. He rejected Devananda Pandit because he allowed Srivas Thakur to be. And so, but somehow or other, Devananda Pandit got the association of Vakreshwar Pandit, who is a great dancing devotee in Lord Chaitanya's Sangha. So this is actually a good lesson for us too. If somehow or other you make an offense to the devotee or the Lord, like Lord Chaitanya, if you get in good graces of a devotee, that devotee can plead to the Lord on your behalf and help. So Vakreshwar and Pandit gave him the darshan and association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made him understand the error of his ways of neglecting Srivas Thakur, and made him go before Srivas Thakur to beg mercy. And actually, upon begging mercy from Srivas Thakur, he received ecstasy. So these are some of the intricacies of devotional life. But that's an example of, yes, hearing Bhagavatam, all this thing. But it's a more, where are you going, Piyush? Okay, so like that. Yes, hearing Bhagavatam, but actually it should be accompanied with persons of realization, which is why Srila Prabhupada, he'd recommended in his temples we read from his purports as well. So like that. Iti ragya upadishya viprajataka kovidaha labdha pachitaya sarve pratijagmu svakangrahan. Iti, thus, ragye, unto the king, upadishya, having advised, vipraha, persons well versed in the Vedas, jataka kovida, persons expert in astrology and in the performance of birth ceremonies, labdha apachitaya, those who have received sumptuously or as remuneration, sarve, all of them, pratijagmu, went back, svakan, their own grahan, houses. Thus, those who were expert in astrological knowledge and in performance of the birth ceremony instructed King Yudhishthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes. Purport. You could, but then there's sometimes that I want to stop, but that you guys might not stop, so it makes it a little difficult. So, purport. The Vedas are the storehouse of knowledge, both material and spiritual. But such knowledge aims at perfection of self-realization. In other words, the Vedas are the guides for the civilized man in every respect. Since human life is the opportunity to get free from all material miseries, it is properly guided by the knowledge of the Vedas, in the matters of both material needs and spiritual salvation. The specific intelligent class of men who are devoted particularly to the knowledge of the Vedas were called Vipras, or the graduates of the Vedic knowledge. There are different branches of knowledge in the Vedas, of which astrology and pathology are two important branches necessary for the common man. I think pathology is like medicine, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So the intelligent men, generally known as the Brahmins, took up all the different branches of Vedic knowledge to guide society. Even the Department of Military Education, Dhanurveda, was also taken up by such intelligent men, and the Vipras were also teachers of this section of knowledge, as were Dronacharya, Kripacharya, etc. So Dhanurveda is military education. So you actually see that Brahmins, because at some point there's two initiations, right? There's Harinam initiation, where you get initiation into the Mahamantra. That is the best initiation, because by this mantra you're developing a relationship with the mantra, with the guru, and you're surrendering to this process. And that's actually all you really need. But let's just say you take this very, very seriously, then the next initiation that's available is called Diksha. And the Brahman Diksha actually means that you're taking a vow to become a Brahmin. So these are actually the type of professions, because you will need to sustain your life as a Brahmin. Like we've taken Brahman Diksha. Mukunda just took Brahman Diksha. So these are the type of professions that you can actually have to have a suitable Brahmin life, Many people may take the Brahmin Diksha, but then if they're doing so many things that aren't suitable to Brahmin Diksha, it actually can cause a lot of conflict. So these are the type of things. Pathology, namely being Ayurveda. That's why you see a lot of devotees, they have Ayurvedic practices. Astrology, you see a lot of devotees have astrological practices, because these are Vedic sciences. This is what Brahmins do. They reveal people these Vedic sciences. Also, interestingly enough, Dhanurveda, which is military education, a Brahmin can actually lead in this as well, and you see this with Dronacharya, Kripacharya, etc. So these are certain things the Brahmins can teach and do, and that's what they traditionally did. So, but there's many others as well. So anyway, the word Vipra mentioned herein is significant. There is little difference between the Vipras and the Brahmins. The Vipras are those who are expert in karma kanda, or fruitive activities, guiding the society towards fulfilling the material necessities of life, whereas the Brahmins are expert in spiritual knowledge of transcendence. This department of knowledge is called Jnana Kanda, and above this there is the Upasana Kanda. The culmination of Upasana Kanda is the devotional service of the Lord Vishnu, and when the Brahmins achieve perfection, they are called Vaishnavas. Vishnu worship is the highest of the modes of worship. Elevated Brahmins are Vaishnavas engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and thus Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the science of devotional service, is very dear to the Vaishnavas. And as explained in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is the mature fruit of Vedic knowledge, and is superior subject matter, above the three khandas, namely karma, jnana, and upasana kanda. So in the Vedas, like 90% of the Vedas is actually this karma kanda section. And it's pretty much teaching you all the different rituals, all the different mantras, all the different sacrifices you can do to get whatever you want in this material world. So there's just like almost an unlimited body of knowledge, just like, what do you want? This is the sacrifice you have to do. This is the demigod you have to please. These are the mantras. This is the process. Go for it and you'll get what you want. So, but these are tiers. They're tiers of understanding in the Vedas. So Vipras are expert in karma kanda, where Brahmanas are more expert in spiritual knowledge, namely Jnana Kanda and Upasana Kanda. Jnana Kanda is, this spiritual knowledge, and Upasana Kanda is the different types of worship activities on a more pure level towards the absolute truth. But even above that, Prabhupada is explaining is the Vaishnavas, those who are completely devoted to the Supreme Lord, beginning with Vishnu at least, and the destination is the Vaikuntha world, but there are again higher tiers of even Vaishnavas. So you have 4 sampradayas, and the 4 sampradayas are giving different forms of Vishnu worship. And in the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya, which we are part of, or we're worshipping here, we have a very specific destination. And our acharyas have a very specific, you could say, swarup, or a type of spiritual body which we're trying to hopefully be granted to practice this type of worship in the next world. So this is called Goloka Vrindavan. You've probably heard of this before, from different personalities who are coming here. So anyway, this is kind of just understanding a little bit. And now actually a Vaishnava, there's so many Vedic Shastras that if you are a Brahmin and you're Paka, meaning like expert and doing everything properly by all of the mantras, all the procedures of the Vedas, but you have no devotion to the Supreme Lord, then actually your whole Brahmin, it's a useless thing. It's all useless. But actually though, if you're not a Brahmin though, and you're just like a cobbler, but you have devotion unto the Supreme Lord, you are perfect. This is why Harinam initiation is the most important initiation. Because it doesn't matter what you're actually qualified. It takes a lot of material qualification to be a Brahmin. To know how to chant mantras, to know how to do proper deity worship, to know how to do all these things. It takes training, and it's not easy actually. But there's no training needed to having some devotion, other than the good fortune of coming across a devoted personality. We have many examples, like Haridas Thakur. He was born in a Muslim family, and he wasn't allowed to practice in the orthodox Vedic age which he lived in. He wasn't allowed to practice Brahmin things, but he was like the Namacharya. Lord Chaitanya granted him the position of Acharya, the one who leads by example how to chant the name of the Lord. And if you study the life of Haridas Thakur, and in Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's very comprehensive about his life, but also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can learn a lot about Haridas Thakur. You can see the type of mood the devotee can cultivate in chanting the holy name of the Lord. But he couldn't practice any of the karma, jnana, upasana kand, but he was topmost type of devotee because he was a Vaishnava. That's why Advaita Acharya, who was one of the leaders of the Brahmins all across that portion of India, he was well respected across Puri, he was well respected across all of West Bengal at a Shraddha ceremony in which he was offering oblations to his relatives. You offer the first prasadam to the most exalted personality. It's kind of, like when Maharaj is here and we're offering the lamp around, go to Maharaj first, right? The most exalted personality should always get the first when we're serving lunch. Maharaj first, right? So this is like common etiquette. So Advaita Acharya, when he had the Shraddha ceremony, many high-level Brahmins were there. Who does he give the oblations to first? Haridas Thakur. So this is actually, and this is to teach us what we should really value. Not like, we don't ask Maharaj, were you born in the Brahmin caste? You don't. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati nor Srila Prabhupada were born in the Brahmin caste. But these are worshipful personalities. So anyway, these are just some kind of semantics of how to properly see and what qualifications to look for. So amongst the Karma Kanda experts, the Jataka expert Vipras were good astrologers who could tell all the future history of a born child simply by the astral calculations of the time, the Lagna. Such expert Jataka Vipras were present during the birth of Maharaj Parikhit, and his grandfather Maharaj Yudhishthir awarded the Vipras sufficiently with gold, land, villages, grains, and other valuable necessaries of life, which also include cows. There is a need of such Vipras in the social structure, and it is the duty of the state to maintain them comfortably, as designed in the Vedic procedure. Such expert Vipras, being sufficiently paid by the state, could give free service to the people in general, and thus this department of Vedic knowledge could be available for all. So actually this was proper. It was well known if even it could be an astrologer, it could be an Ayurvedic doctor. A Brahmin, they weren't, they didn't really have like business shops. Like now, even in this age, because we don't have a society that supports Brahminical work, you kind of have to make like a business. This is my astrology practice. This is my Ayurveda practice. Why? Because the society is not going to support you, because their values aren't there. But actually, in ancient Aryan society, this is what actually was done. This type of work was respected, and Brahmins were always taken care of. So this is who did the charts of, this class of men did the charts for King Yudhishthir. And we're able to tell so much about, and if you ever get a really good astrology reading, you can actually know so much about your life. So, yes, I'm a huge fan of this service. I try to support this service. We did it with Abhiram and me and my wife, and even I think Madhav. So, just something to consider. Last verse. Sa esha loke vidyataha. Sorry, vikyata, I said vid. Parikshit iti yat prabhu. Purvam drishtam anudhyayan. Parikshita nareshviha. Saha he esha, in this loke world. Vikyataha, famous. Parikshit, one who examines. Iti, thus. Yat, what? Prabhu, oh my king. Purvan, before. Drishtam, seen. Anudhyayan, constantly contemplating. Parikshita, shall examine. Nareshu, unto every man. Iha, here. Translation. So his son would become famous in the world as Parikhit, examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality whom he saw before his birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. So that's why his name is Parikshit. I don't know how to say, because, they say Parikhit, but if you look here, this S with the dot, I've heard that should be Sh. So now I'm like very confused. But Parikhit it is.
There's the K next to it. No?
What's that? Oh, yes.
I've always heard it Parikshit, but yeah.
Yes.
I've heard both.
Yes, we're hearing many things. Anyway, Parikshit, whatever it is. I know Parikshit is when you Parikshit for the English language to hear Parikshit is not as easy for the ears.
Pretty adamant about Dickit.
What?
About Dickit.
Oh, instead of Dikshit, yes.
Pretty adamant about this.
So I trust Maharaj. So Parikhit it is. So because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality whom he saw before his birth, thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. Purport. Maharaj Parikhit, fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord even in the womb of his mother, and thus his contemplation on the Lord was constantly fixed, constantly with him. Once the impression of the transcendental form of the Lord is fixed in one's mind, one can never forget him in any circumstance. Child Parikhit, after coming out of the womb, was in the habit of examining everyone to see whether he was the same personality whom he first saw in the womb. But no one could be equal to or more attractive than the Lord, and therefore he never accepted anyone. But the Lord was constantly with him by such examination, and thus Maharaj Parikhit was always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord by remembrance. So this is actually very nice, because he actually got darshan of the Lord. He was always again looking for the Lord, but never able to find, that complete Supreme Personality again in anyone he ever saw. But by always examining, by always saying, "Oh, are you the Lord?" He actually was able to remember the Lord constantly this way. This is actually very nice. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord, like Maharaj Parikhit. He put this in italicized. So this is for me, because I have Abhiram now with us. If we give him an impression of the Lord from his childhood, he'll certainly become a great devotee. So, we'll see. Can we actually even give an impression of the Lord? That's the question. So one may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parikhit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother. But even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of a neighboring temple of Radha Govinda. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later into regulative devotional service by his divine grace. Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary, like others. So Srila Prabhupada is sharing so many things here. He's showing in his own life that because his mother and father, they gave him, especially his father, such a strong devotional impression, that even when, now a lot of devotees will, this is a little controversial because they'll say like, oh, he's a Nitya Siddha, he was a perfected being right from birth, all these things. But Prabhupada himself is saying, what's that?
He's literally revealing the truth right here. Yeah.
Kind of, but it's still possible. They say this about Bhakti Vinod Thakur too, but I mean, me and Nishinga were talking about this the other day, where Bhakti Vinod Thakur's own words, that he used to eat fish and have a certain type of lifestyle beforehand. To me personally, I don't know, who's a Nitya Siddha. And actually one time, the devotees of Srila Prabhupada were saying, well, who's a Nitya Siddha and who's a Sadhaka Siddha and things like that. And Prabhupada said the important word is Siddha. I mean, it doesn't matter how they reached perfection, they're perfect. So that's it. It doesn't matter whether they were always perfect or whether they, through sadhana, got perfect. But anyway, Prabhupada is showing, even if he is a Nitya Siddha, he went through the leela of being away from his devotional practices in childhood. And you see that because the impression was made at childhood, when he did come across his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta, he immediately realized the truth because it was given to him at childhood. And, this is comforting for me because that's exactly what my son's chart says. He's going to be like wildly materially successful, but at the end he will come back to his, the roots. And it's recommended from childhood, you have to give him so many impressions. So, and actually you see this a lot with second generation devotees. It just seems like, how the heck are you not but for whatever reason, they have to spend time, because they never really got to see the material world. Like we're us, many of us, we got so bombarded by the material world and just so much obliterated by it that we were just completely materially exhausted, and they said, Krishna, I surrender. And then we can take to devotional service and trying to learn these things. But them, they've only been given devotional service from childhood. So at some point they may, and Prabhupada said it happened to him in the colleges. That's where it's happening to many people. Piyush, you maybe agree, when you went to college, there's so many things that you were born with, just like that. It goes away. And so, but if you give these impressions, because at some point Krishna will reach it back out to that person through some personality, some way, and it can be revitalized. And actually, you see, this is what Prabhupada is saying, and he's emphasizing how important it is for devotee parents. And he's giving an example how Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj, this is what he emphasized with his little schoolmates, and And no, we don't, because they were telling him, well, yeah, but you can do that when you're older. You could take to your devotional practices when you're older. And he's like, no, there's no better time than right now. You know, as a little baby, as a little boy. And Prabhupada, he ends actually with he's paraphrasing a verse later in the Bhagavatam in the Uddhav Gita, which is Labdava Sudurlabhamidam Bahusambhavante Manusyamarthadam Anitya Apihadiraha Turnam Yateta Napatet Anumrityu Yavan Nishreyasaya Vishaya Kalusarvatasya. And pretty much says that how valuable this human form of life is. This is actually the ultimate wealth, but it is temporary. It's a temporary arrangement. And Maharaj gave a really nice example the other day of the blind man he's in a corridor and he's reaching around trying to find the exit of a room. And the human form of life, this is your chance out of this miserable situation in this material world. But it's a temporary arrangement. If you do find the exit, but if you're not careful and you brush over it again and you circle the room again, you're going to have to circle all the 8,400,000 species. Or if it's a little bit more complex than that example, because Ben, you brought up, but what about if you get a human form of life again? Actually, if you take devotional life, which you're all actually to some degree, a level of bhakti is there, you will get a human form of life just to continue on. So it's not like you just find the corridor, I'll just walk right out. It's a process out, once you do find the corridor, but you're finding your way out.
There are many locks on the door.
Yes, many different locks, maybe a couple doors you have to go through. And, you could say that's the different phases of bhakti: Shraddha, Bhajana, Sadhusanga, Bhajana, Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, and then Bhav, and then Prem. So like this. So anyhow, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So we'll continue on tomorrow. Very happy to have you guys back. And yes, Hari Bol.